want to thank each of you for attending this very impromptu talk. And as I've been here for a few weeks and going through the Ayurvedic plans for a couple of weeks, as I had a wonderful chance to talk with Hayo and Rose, and we see some of the things that I do, and I'm a writer. I've written 10 books. My latest book that will be coming out is called Past Lives, Present Mind Body, and it's all about the intergenerational traumas that are passed down to us from our ancestors. And we're going to be focusing on that tonight because the title is How Inherited Family Trauma and Belief Shapes Health, Emotions, and Behavior. And there's been a lot of amazing developments in this field over the last 10 years. And I'm going to, because we're such a small group, welcome any of your questions as we go. And I'll keep it in my mind at a simple level. But again, if you don't understand some of the terms that I use or some of the ideas, please raise your hand. We've got plenty of time in order to answer your questions and make sure you have some clarity, because I think this is one of the most important new developments that are happening in all of biology and science today, and it really comes under the heading of something called epigenetics. And I'm just curious, when I say the word epigenetics, is that something familiar to you? Yes. To you, yes. To you, no. To you, well, we've talked about it to them, so they should be, and I've talked about it to you yesterday, so you probably have a little idea. But epigenetics is really the science that has really emerged over the last 50 years. Most of us know genetics, and we understand that we have DNA and we've got all these genes and they have chromosomes, and this is what gives all of the information for how the body creates itself. And it starts from a very simple principle of all of a sudden we have these 23 chromosomes, 2 pairs of them. They come together with the DNA from mother and from father. And we're very much said that you have all of these inherited traits. And so your traits of your body, of your direction in life, of everything that's going on, and even your mind, which we'll talk about, has development from this information, because that's what it is. A gene is an informational substance. It has directions of what proteins to build and how to do it. And it works with other aspects of what's in this tiny little cell, of which you have about 50 trillion. Get an idea of that, 50 trillion cells inside of you. And it all came and started with the one cell, right? All of a sudden we know basic biology, and mom and dad and the sperm and the egg, and they got together and they created this new baby. And most of the history of science and of the medical profession was your genes, you can't do anything about them. Your genes are what we call hardwired. And up until the 70s and even well into the 80s and 90s, the idea was, well, there's nothing you can do about it. That's it. And all of a sudden, research started coming through more and more, where they were studying identical twins that were separated at birth and lived up in 2 completely different environments. So if our genes were hardwired and we were condemned in order to repeat whatever it is that was given to us biologically, well, then they should have exact similar replica lives. And they didn't. And we found out something that, even though it was studied, actually found in the 1930s, all of a sudden it gained more and more insight into the environmental influences of how our genes turn on and off. And so all of a sudden, the nature-nurture people are starting to sit there and say, wait a minute, the way you nurture affects the way that the genes are going to act. So here Identical twins, one is obese and with cancer, the other one is strong and emotionally fit, and yet they have exactly identical genes, DNA, because they're identical twins. So something had to be different. And this is where epigenetics started to really take hold. Epi means above and beyond. Something that's not in the genes itself, it's something that comes to affect the genes. And what we realize is, and most of us, that's why we came here, because we know the environment really changes the way that we respond in our lives, the way that we feel. So we come here, I mean, just look out there. I mean, on camera they can't see, but you need to show them what it is that I'm looking at here. We see this beautiful area. It's safe. It's filled with nature. The smell is wonderful. We're in a safe, beautiful environment here at Mangosteen. Right? You haven't even started treatment, but the moment you arrive, you go, and then you check out your room, which is so beautiful, and then you work with all the many staff who are all so nice and wonderful, right? We bring our environment in. And this is really what epigenetics is about, is understanding that which is outside of us is brought inside of us. So the physical environment is brought inside. The mental environment is brought inside. Every thought that you have creates a biological reaction. Every thought. We have 50,000 thoughts per day, but only 5,000 of them are conscious. So our subconscious mind is running the show, and we're not even familiar where those subconscious thoughts even come from. Why? Because we think that's who we are, how we act, how we respond, our behaviors. We don't even question it. That somehow there's influences occurring beyond just the DNA that we received, and that's the environments that we're in. So we come to Mangosteen, and we feel good while we're here, and then we change the environment of the food that we take in. We change the environment of the people that we interact with. And all of a sudden, we feel better. And if you're not feeling better, then you're really far down, okay? And you know that you're in a really internal state, and you're not even letting the environment in. And you can do that, can't you? You can block out, you can isolate, you can all of a sudden withdraw. And even in this beautiful environment, if your mindset is negative and you're still caught in, I don't know, the argument you had with someone before you left, okay, or a loss that happened, or a trauma that happened, you might not even see and visually experience this beauty here, okay? Because we have these filters, right? And it's like a dark cloud sets over your head. Well, that dark cloud is mind and emotion. And one of the most important parts of Ayurveda that allows the fastest and most complete recovery is when you integrate mind and with all of the different things that you're doing for purifying your body. Why? Because we have 50,000 thoughts per day. And every thought, and that just creates a biological reaction. Close your eyes just for a second. Let's just prove this idea. Think about something beautiful. Maybe something that you've experienced since you've been here. A beautiful sunset. A walk on the beach. A smell of a flower. Notice how your body feels when you think about something like that. Can you feel an energy inside you from the thought? Maybe a little bit lighter. Maybe a smile comes over your face when you think about the beauty or the joy. Or maybe you just saw a little baby's face and you smiled and the baby smiled at you, and how that opens your heart and your mind. We reflect our environment. Now take a deep breath. Let that go and just think of something before you came here that stressed you out. You know, I don't know, travel arrangements, packing, doing all the things you had to do in advance before you leave to make sure they're taken care of before you go, right? And notice what happens in your body. All of a sudden, can you notice a little constriction? Okay, your breathing doesn't go as deep or as easy. You might feel constriction in your throat, a little pressure on your lower back or your neck. Take a deep breath and go back to the earlier picture. I don't want to leave you with that. You see, your environment is your mind. And you're with it 24/7. And the perception of your environment is another. So you have your environment coming in, but then you have your perception of the environment. That's completely different. That depends what filter you're looking through. If you're looking through the, here at last, I'm on vacation, I can take care of myself. This feels so good. Or, oh my God, I didn't do this. I've got to get on that call tomorrow. I've got a Zoom thing to do. Oh my God, who's that on the phone there, right? And then you haven't left where you were, did you? So every moment, I want you to understand the mastery of your mental, emotional, and physical health. It's not determined by any one thing. It's determined by a combination of all the different fields of consciousness and nature that you interact with. It all comes inside. In fact, I love this quote, and this is a quote, if you know Dr. Candace Pert, she worked for Washington and some of the health departments. She's best-selling author of different books on the Nobel Prize winning team that found what we call the molecules of emotion that would bring happiness and joy. And she was on that team back in the 70s and 80s. And she reminded us that every perception you ever had, from being at your mother's breast to what happened in this morning, is stored in your vibrating receptors. And hormones, peptides, and neurotransmitters create resonance to transfer 98% of the data transferred in the body-mind. So every cell, if you think about the cell, we always think that, but around each cell are all these receptors, and they're vibrating. And they reflect the environment that you're in, perceptually and infactually. It depends. You can be in a terrible place, but perceive it to be, wow, this is what I live for. I want to be a hero. And you can look, it's a war outside, and you're saying, this is my chance to show them. And you can feel great. And then there'll be others, no, I'm scared as hell, they're going to kill me. Right? So remember, the environment is one thing, but your perception of the environment is based upon one thing: your emotional state at the time. An emotional state is energy vibrating, creating a field of either one that is, right? You know that good feeling? Or, I'm in Thailand, who are these people? They look different, they act different. Oh my God, look how they drive. Are you crazy? Right? You can take that viewpoint, or you can just sit back and say, you know, I'm in the back of the taxi. He knows how to handle it. Wow, look at this. This is chill, man. Wow. That's all up to you, isn't it? And that you can change energetically, boom, 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 that fast. All of a sudden you see something that gets you upset, boom, you change your state like that. Because we are fields of energy, and we go at 186,000 miles per second. That's how fast electricity Electromagnetic fields of 186, that's the speed of light. And that energy can move through our system in 1 second at that rate, one stream of light over 10 million times in 1 second. So it seems instantaneous. We shift. All of a sudden, right, you've been with a person, they were in a great mood, then something, you say one thing, and they go into a bad mood, just like that. How is that possible? All night was beautiful. One idea, one word, one perception. I don't like that look on his face. What is he saying to me? Imagination. He's not saying anything. He's actually thinking about something else and thinking about the delicious meal he had earlier. Okay? It's nothing about me. But if I take it that way, my perception, I all of a sudden can change my whole vibrational field, and you can feel it when you're next to someone. Can you feel somebody when they're angry? Do you know, it's like, you can almost like walk in the room and like, what? You don't know what it is until maybe they turn to you and right? There you go, you feel the anger. Or you can feel peace. If you've ever sat next to a guru, they emanate this field of peace. Well, some of them, and some of the times. Do you understand what I'm saying? We're creating these fields, and this is very important because in my research over the last 35 years, what I found out is I really concentrated on something that Einstein mentioned. And this became the real key for me to develop what I call quantum embodiment. And that's in understanding how these different epigenetic influences in your mind internally and externally, and the influence of your family, which we're going to talk about in a moment, how they're shaping you every second, where you can either be the master of it or you can be the victim of it. You can think that everything is out of your control, or you could realize that your perception is in your control if you pause and learn new strategies and tools in order to take whatever is happening and turn it into something that is helpful and positive. Because every negative judgment that you make about yourself, about someone else, creates a perception, a vibratory field, and every cell responds. So far, so good? Yeah? Okay. Now here's the interesting thing. As you perceive, and the receptors around the cells are vibrating, and also recording, okay, so we can start to understand this with computer chips, how these little tiny chips can get trillions and trillions of pieces of information on it and process it almost instantaneously, right? I mean, think you got 50 trillion of those. They're called cells. Okay? And based on that, we'll determine what type of molecule, what type of chemical compound the cell will allow to enter into it. There's like a key. And if the field of the biochemical and the field vibration of the receptor, if they match, then that can enter into the cell, and that will then direct the nucleus of what type of proteins in order to be able to create. And so your creation, which is a non-stop process, is going to be affected by, directed by, how your cells are vibrating and how the environment is sending in signals into you, and this is epigenetics. It's the people that you live with at home. What kind of environment? Think about that. Do you feel safe? Do you feel supported? What about at work? Work, probably the most important. Home and work, but work is where you spend more time with your eyes open consciously than anywhere else. Do you love what you do? Do you wake up in the morning and go, wow, I get a chance to do what I love today. I just can't wait in order to help these people do these things, learn these things. Wow, I just have such a great team. That's how they wake up every day. Or at least I imagine it. Right? We would hope. But you see, all of that is going to create a biological reaction. And my emotion, energy in motion, my state will determine what field I'm going to vibrate with internally and externally. What I'm going to give and share with others. And what I'm going to share first with myself inside. So these are things we're always looking for. And you want to examine closely, especially where you live. When you walk into your house, what are you presented with? Remember, you're walking into this field that's supposed to be your sanctuary. Your home is meant to be your sanctuary. There where you have nothing but something supported, loving, uplifting. Is it? Think about when you come in the door. What are the paintings or pictures? Or maybe there's nothing. What's it like in the living room, in the kitchen? Every room is a different field, isn't it? With different memories, different associations, involvements with that. I'll never forget, I was working with one client and she just couldn't seem to move forward in her life on relationships. She was divorced 10 years earlier and she just says, I just can't make a connection with any new man. I just keep, it's this. And she blamed it all, of course, on her ex-husband who cheated on her. And I said, well, yeah, that happened 10 years ago. I said, but every moment that you remember it and talk about it, you're recreating it again. So you can't blame him for the last 10 years. You haven't moved forward. And she kept her last name of marriage, her married last name. This is a terrible thing to do, okay? You get divorced, you change your last name. Because otherwise everybody say, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you're no longer Mrs. Jones, are you? But every time somebody says that, they're triggering that field of memory and pain and suffering. Why? So she invited me over to her house for a drink, and I went in, and the moment I went into the living room, I saw this big picture on the wall. And who do you think it was?
Mr. Jones.
Right, the ex-husband. I said, wait a minute, so I'm walking in, and every day you walk in, and all you do is see your failure. Because that's what it was to her, a failure. Well, I'm doing it for my son, because I want him to be able to connect and stay connected to his father. I said, that's a very nice thing, so put it in his room. Okay? What happens when you bring a boyfriend home and they see a picture of your ex-husband from 10 years ago on the wall and you're still using his last name and you're still talking about him every chance you get when you meet someone new? You get the idea? So she's creating that. And we create that in different levels. Your home should be your sanctuary and everything should be uplifting. Because it's a field that's giving you energy through vision, isn't it? So these are just some little things to look at that can begin to reshape the way that you're existing. Because remember, when you're seeing those things, they're sending messages to you and they're triggering fields of memory inside of you that is creating this mix of emotions at many different levels, and that is determining, remember, your emotional state is what determines your thinking, your decision making, and your actions. Behaviorists like to try and get you to change your actions. Do things differently. Okay? Many other people go around trying to change your thinking. You can't change your thinking until you change your emotion. Because the emotion, the energy that I have, will direct it. Now think about this. When you feel at peace, you have peaceful thinking. You make decisions based on peace. And it gives you the best opportunity for the action to come from peace to bring you results based on peace. But when you're angry, right? How's your thinking? Destructive, isn't it? I want to fight back. I want to hit. I want to defend. I want to attack. I'm angry. So I'm going to then have angry thinking, angry decisions, angry actions, results based on anger. And we know what those create, right? So one of the things I discovered in what I call quantum embodiment, this is the science that I created, okay? Because everything I was seeing, everybody was trying to say, just do this one thing and you'll be healed. I said, no. We're so many different fields that govern us, is that we have to understand that the field is the governing agent of energy and matter. The field. This is Einstein. So don't change the matter. Don't change the energy unless you're also changing the field that it's in. Now, I've met some wonderful people here since I've been here and heard some great stories, because the moment I would tell them what it is that I do, all of a sudden people open up and I hear life stories and why they're here and the things going on. And it's really, I'm used to it and I appreciate it, and I love to share the knowledge that I have and if I can be helpful in any way. But one of these wonderful women who was here, and she was looking great and doing great, but every time she thought about going back home, I could see her whole energy field go, ugh. Her whole system break down. Well, she says, yeah, well, I have to go to the airport. And I hate airports. And so she hadn't even left yet. And here she is, collapsing in her mind because I hate airports. So that one thought, connected to some trauma, some upset in the past, all of a sudden, all the incredible glowing, and she was glowing, gone that quickly. And then she thought about going home, and that she was going back to a job that she didn't like. So yeah, so now, not even gone. I'm afraid of the airport. I hate the job that I do. I don't want to see those people anymore. It doesn't wait. It happens instantly, and the whole system says, well, I can show you what hate feels like. Okay, here, this is what it feels like. Right? I want you to understand that when you begin to understand how to change your field, meaning your emotional state, automatically your thinking changes. You don't have to go around changing your thinking. Because if you try and change your thinking without first changing your emotion, now you're fighting against yourself. And then you have to embody the new thinking. And you'll see, yeah, I'm really lovable, and I'm really good and strong, and yeah, everybody loves me. Do you believe what I just said? Because my body was completely showing the complete opposite. Your body has to be aligned with that affirmation. An affirmation where inside, yeah, I'm strong and confident, and then inside you're going, yeah, but nobody loves me, and this is just bullshit. Then it's like, So embodiment is essential to make sure that there's alignment between the thought, the emotion, and whatever it is that you're doing. So these types of things are essential. Any questions on any of that so far? Pretty basic, right? But the question is, do you follow it? Do you every minute realize that you have the power of your emotional, mental, and physical state in your hands? The better you feel, the more you'll choose beautiful raw vegetables and Ayurvedic choices. you do what you do and how you do what you do didn't start with you, did it? Where did you learn language? Where did you learn different types of ways of living, eating, interacting? See, you not only inherited from your parents their genes, which give you the coding, but you also inherit from them the modeling that you saw of them, and what we now know is the traumas that your ancestors have been through. We now realize that in addition to your genes that you inherit, you're inheriting the ancestral traumas of grandparents, great-grandparents, and great-grandparents. And we've now, with technology, been able to find these, and there's something called intergenerational epigenetic tags. And what happens is the trauma produces an enzyme, something called a methylation. And this enzyme attaches itself to the DNA strand. So it doesn't change it, but what it does, see if you can get this. So here I am, you can see this is all aligned. Now a tag comes on, and do you see what's happened? The structure has changed. It's no longer aligned, is it? And when these tags that happen during traumatic times get attached to the DNA strand, it changes the structure and can either silence, shut down, or turn up the expression of that gene. So your genes haven't changed, but the structure has. Because these DNA strands are wrapped around another protein, the histones, and if that changes, I mean, just imagine, so here's this glass. If I put a big indentation in it, will it change the function of how I use this glass? The structure determines the function. Structure determines function. Change the structure, the function changes. Add something in order to latch on to something, and it changes the vibrational field. Now we change the vibrational field, we change the structure, and all of a sudden we have diabetes, heart disease, cancer. Because you don't have to change much. One little tiny change multiplied by billions and trillions of times through the cells in the body, all of a sudden, you don't know that you've changed your structure, except you really do in a way. Because you embody your emotional state. So even though you're not realizing it at a cellular level and at a DNA level that you're changing your structure, right? Do I have to say anything? Can you get a sense of how I feel just standing like this? Or standing like this? Or standing like this? I'm just changing my structure, but I went, right, from peace to anger to fear. The body is the unconscious mind. And when you're communicating with someone, the most important thing is to say, is their words aligned to their body? If I go to you, oh, it's really a pleasure to meet you. It's really glad you're here. Really, really. Right? Can you believe what I said? I said the right words, but my body said completely opposite. The embodiment, and we know this is actually communications technology, is that the body is about 70% of our communications. The tone that we use, 20%. So if I go and I double it, oh yeah, really nice to have you here. The words are perfect, but no, I don't believe him. Okay? The words are only 10% of our communication. Now you know why we're getting so disembodied as a culture, because nobody even looks at each other anymore. Everything is texting. So we take the body out of it. We take the tone of voice out of it, which we're used to, right? We listen to the tone. I can still remember, my name is Brian. So when my mother would go, Brian, oh man, I knew I was in trouble. Okay, right? Brian, different feeling, right? Same name, same word, but what's the tonality? What's the body? What's the volume? Okay, very important to put all these together. And all of these are learned from whoever we grew up with. And we, between 0 and 8 years old, we're in a perpetual hypnotic state. We are absorbing mommy and daddy. They're our role models. But unbeknownst to us, inside of us is the traumas that they went through. And remember, the traumas that mother starts with began in grandmother. And then we go back, and we see these tags. And this is where the new science, by the way, is going. Is we now know that these epigenetic tags of trauma are affecting what our genes are representing. And so the big rush is, how do we get and change these tags and get rid of what is called the methylations? They're trying to do it. A lot of great work is happening in Israel, particularly these days, on doing it with pharmaceuticals. But I found, and other people, like I'm familiar with Dr. Bruce Lipton, and has a lot of great work in this area, is that you can actually do it vibrationally by changing your state and changing your environmental impacts so as to lift the vibrational fields to a higher level, and then those tags either drop away or don't get ignited. They're not triggered anymore. And that's my specialty. My specialty is finding how many of the issues we've all had in our lives, they're not from our own biography. They're from the biographies of ancestors. And what's amazing is you can tap in through your body what those memories are, even though you may never have met them. You may not have the story clear, but you'll have the sensation clear. And remember, it's a memory. It's coded in on the receptors, on these particular intergenerational epigenetic tags. There's lots of ways that now we're getting caught up in these fields that get passed down from generation to generation. And here you are thinking it's all about you. And you go and you spend years and years in therapy, and you get some gains and you find some nice tools and it improves you here and there, but you never get to the underlying origin. Because the origin's not in your memory. This is one of the things that I always ask all of my clients, is one of the first things we do is say, okay, let's go look at your ancestral tree. I want you to talk to whoever's alive still and find out the stories of their lives, because the traumas that they've gone through are also affecting you. And not only just with the tags on your genes, but remember, behaviors, rules, attitudes, religion, eating habits, they're all passed down because we model our parents, our grandparents. And even though we might be resisting them and saying, no, I never want to be like you, all of a sudden one day we look in the mirror and go, ah, there's my parent. Right? You hear yourself shouting, well, who is that? Oh my God, I'm shouting just like she did or he did. Right? And we start taking on these things. So we have our very DNA, we have these epigenetic tags, we have environmental fields that are influencing us, and we have the modeling of them. So we see these are all inherited from our family. And they're shaping our emotions and they're shaping our behavior. And until you pause and step back to question it and see it from a different perspective, you're going to think it's me. What's wrong with me? And so the search is to discover the family patterns and illnesses, diseases, attitudes, biases. You'll see patterns. And very often when somebody comes in to work with me and they have cancer, we'll see that same cancer in earlier generations and we'll trace it back until there was a cancerous situation. I remember with one couple that I was working with, well, actually with the woman involved, and she had gone, by the time she got to me, she had already, I think, 5 or 6 major cancer operations, and she was already frightened it was going to be passed down into her children who were still too young. And she said, what can I do? I said, well, we can't go back to what's happened to you, but you can change the field that you're living in, because you don't even realize it, but your attitudes, your diets, the way that you're living your life is exactly the way your mother and father did it. And they're doing it the way their parents did it. So all of these habits that you're stuck in keep creating this repetition in order to trigger these same particular enzymes, the methylations, to activate and cause you these diseases and these problems and these issues. So we now know that. And one of the great works by Dr. Michael Skinner, and he's traced it back that we can go back at least 3 generations now and see that whatever they've been conditioned in during a painful situation. Now, there's a positive to that too. The positive can be they learned a helpful technique to survive. And that can be really great, except if there's no longer the dangers surrounding you and the threats aren't there, but you're living as if there is danger and threat around you, okay, and you keep waiting for something to happen, you don't even know what happened, and you're waiting to, I have to prevent it from happening again, and you'll find some other excuse. Remember, the ego is very creative, and it will come up with all different types of ways in order to explain, why this is happening to you. Number 1 rule of therapy. Number 1, you're never, ever upset for the reason you think. Whatever you think it is, it's not. It's deeper. The ego has a way of getting to deflect everything and blame something outside you. It doesn't want to look within and own the guilt. It doesn't want to do real, true forgiveness. It doesn't want to do real, proper, cathartic release. It doesn't want to do any of that. It wants to sit there and say, no, I just changed you. And if you would have worn a red shirt, then I would have been happy. And so the fact that you're wearing a white one, which I can't stand white, and it makes me sick, then it's all about you. You see, I just got to change her, him, it, that. So the process is about growing awareness, looking at all these different levels. And from an Ayurvedic standpoint, to understand that even in the limbs of yoga, and most people go around and they do yoga, and it's beautiful to do the asanas, and you come and you do the asanas, and maybe you do a little pranayama, some breathing, okay, maybe even a few minutes of meditation. But the most important asanas, okay, is the asanas of the mind. Something called yam and niyam. These are the first 2 limbs of yoga, okay? And that's learning to purify your mind, purify your body, purify your relationships with your ancestors, and find out those traumas and find a way to shift and change the fields so that you can live in a more uplifting life, healthier, longer, happier, because you have the knowledge and you use it. Some questions?
So you mentioned the tags that are attached to the cell.
Say it a little louder, I'm sorry.
You mentioned the tags that are attached to the cell.
Right, yes, right, the methylation, yes.
Is there a way, do we know that it comes from ancestors because there's an age on it? Like I said, it's 20 years old or it's 50 years old. Is that how we determine?
Well, it's actually on the actual DNA itself, okay? It attaches into the genes. So the receptors have the vibrations and they have a recording of it. That's one place. But these are actually placed, the methylations, on the strand of genes, the DNA itself, okay? And we were able to then find that these traumas, for example, Rachel Shoa, she found people that went through the war in Denmark. And there was a time that there was great starvation and the whole city was living on like 500 calories per day. And the babies, the children that were born during this period, and then the children to those children, the grandchildren, were suffering consequences as if they had these traumas themselves, even though they knew nothing about them. And they all of a sudden, we were able to see obesity, cancer, heart disease, and it didn't make sense because in their own biography, they lived healthy lives. They had a good epigenetic growing up in the environment. And so we started tracing them back, and then we looked in this generation, then we saw it in the other generation, and then we found it in this generation. Yeah, because remember, we take on things from grandma. So you began, each one of us began inside grandma. You'll go, no, Brian, I began inside my mother. No. The egg that would become you was the precursor cells to that egg was in your grandmother. And those eggs, okay, for a woman, they're constant for the rest of their lives. Men keep making, now men also have that problem too if they're going through traumas, but their traumas need to be more recent, okay? So if you see traumatic situations happening to a man and or a woman right around conception time, I will tell you those are going to be coded into that new baby. It may not come up for many years depending upon the kind of nurturing that they're receiving. But they've found in these studies that the more you nurture, the more you're able to dismantle these methylations and these tags. And they don't get activated. And even if you don't get rid of them, because you're in a higher vibrational field, okay, it's kind of like in Ayurveda. If you're familiar with Ayurveda, Ayurveda has different vibrational fields. And this is one of the reasons I love Ayurveda so much. It understands vibrational fields. Okay, even though it never used that term back then, it's what it's saying. So you've got sattvic, you've got rajas, right? And you've got tamas. So tamas is heavy, rajas is more action, and sattvic is very, light. And we try to, in our Ayurvedic diet, eat sattvic food, light food that the body digests. It turns to light much faster, okay? And so we have to understand all these fields, all these tags will determine what gets activated. And if I can live in this environment that everybody's loving to me and supportive to me, that's the best thing that can happen. Okay? But the moment that doesn't happen, I might now then fall down, and this is what happens to a lot of people. I mean, I've been involved with Ayurveda for 35 years, and I've worked with doctors all around the world, and I've seen people have amazing changes temporarily. And they would go back to their old environment with their old people, doing the same old things, and before you know it, they're eating the same way. They're doing the exact same thing all over again. And it didn't really get traction. So they then come back again, and they feel good. Hey, I'd rather you feel good for 2 weeks or 4 weeks than for no weeks. But until you then say, I have to make this my new habit, it's creating something called a new morphic field. I have only a short time to talk, so I didn't want to go too much into the idea of morphinogenesis. This is the underlying field that creates the field. Okay? You don't see it, it's invisible. So when you look at this building, we see the structure of the building, but what we don't see the blueprint, do we? Nowhere in this building is the blueprint. But the blueprint, without it, this building wouldn't exist the way it is. And it's the same for every cell and every part of our body. There is a field, an imprint in the space that creates the very structure of what every cell and what everything will be. Through repetition of it, it all of a sudden keeps repeating. So as you see the type of ceiling that this has, the type of structure, all the different villas in here are structured around that. But we don't see the blueprint that says that anywhere, do we? Where's your blueprint of your cells? Who tells the cells, the proteins, how many to make? How long does this go? That's something called the morphinogenic field, and that's the ultimate. And when you begin to understand that there's this underlying field, the vibration of consciousness, of life, that's never going to be seen, but creates the structure, you start working at that level to shift it. And when you can shift it, everything changes. Structure changes, function changes, the complete way in which the interaction is with all existence changes. And it's pretty amazing to get down to that level. To give you an example of that, and this was some of my motivations 30 years ago, when all of a sudden I started looking for these answers. There's something called an MPD, multiple personality disorder. They now change the names to it a little bit, but I stay with MPD. You all familiar with that, a person with multiple personalities? Well, science has shown that you can have a person in one personality. In one of the research reports, this guy, when he was the Englishman, and he was English, nothing about you in UK, nothing personal, but he was always diabetic when he was in that personality. But when he switched to the Frenchman, and all of a sudden, maybe that happens within 30 seconds, if you now would check, he no longer had diabetes. Tumors disappeared, one personality versus another personality. Eyesight changes. All body situations can change that quickly. So what I realized when I started researching this was I've seen this in my own practice many times. I've seen people switch into a personality, and that personality was healthy, happy, unbelievably motivated. And then just in an instant, they can slip into a personality and become someone else. You know the feeling of waking up feeling, I'm not myself today. You know, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. I'm just, you know that, I don't feel like me today. Well, you're not. You're someone else. It is this field of personality that takes you over, and it changes your whole system. You can have cancer in one personality, cancer-free in the others. Diabetes in one personality, diabetes-free in the other. How is that possible? But it is. And I've seen it in clients. I've seen people get, boom, complete, no more symptoms of cancer. Spontaneous remission. I've seen amazing things. And as I've researched these, the one thing that's common that allows it to maintain is a complete change of field. And I mean everything. And mostly your level of faith. You know the old saying is that if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. Well, if you have 100% faith, that is a very rarefied field, isn't it? With no doubt in it, no fear in it, no anxiety in it. Doubtless. And we know this from science, that you heal much faster with that type of attitude. So it's a field of mind, a field of emotion, a field of body, a field of relationships, a field of your environment where you live, a field of the food that you put inside you, a field of your microbiome, because you might have 50 trillion cells, but your microbiome has 200 trillion microbes inside of you, also vibrating, working along with you, and one of the biggest epigenetic influences, and we didn't have time to talk about it. Questions?
Which kind of people are you working? Is it special illnesses or special?
No, with depression, with anxiety, with diabetes, with cancer, with anything. Because, you know, I'm working with somebody with mutated genes where she's supposed to be in a wheelchair by 40 years old. It doesn't really matter what it is. I work with people all around the world, mainly through Zoom. I work with people, wherever I go, people sometimes fly out to just see me. I may be doing some things here. We'll see. We're just trying to see if there's some interest in our talk tonight, and if there's some interest in the community, then maybe we'll offer some things here to work individually with clients. You know, but while I'm here, I work with whatever comes to me. Yeah.
How do you change it? So what can you do?
Well, you're doing one thing already. You're here. This is, unless you live in, I don't know, do you live in a place like this in UK? I can't imagine. I mean, I lived in the UK. I never saw a place like this. So you've just changed your environmental field. And think about it. Your air quality has changed. The amount of sun has changed. What you see every day. The interaction, okay? I mean, you know, I don't know my experience working with every person here who works on this staff. They interact with me with such compassion and care. I don't think you find that if you go into a pub in England or into one in Germany. People, they don't have time, everybody, because they're all stressed. Here, they're also living in this field. So they then multiply the field. And the foods that you're eating, okay, have different. So you're in the process. Good first step. Now, you've got to look at what are the weeds inside of your thinking, your fears, your anxieties, the losses that you're holding on to, your disconnections from other people. Okay, so now you have to go inside, because the mind is what you're digesting every day. So let's look at, until you can elevate yourself to a consciousness of contentment. Santosh, they call it. To be in a state of peace. No matter where you are, how do you reach that? Okay? How do you go back to work in UK and maintain that? And then you have to learn some new strategies, different ways to communicate, different ways to be aware when you lose it. Hey, I lose it sometimes, okay? Sometimes I lose that vibration and it comes. But I'm aware, and I'm always checking my body to see if I lost my peace. And if I did, I immediately stop, do what I need to do, have hundreds of tools to do it with, to then bring me back to the higher sattvic level, to the higher vibrational level. So that changed my field. I might have to change my job because I don't know, working for this military industrial complex that creates missiles in order to kill other people, I don't know, that might not be very uplifting. 3 years ago, I had someone come to me with a mutant gene, and already her father and her brother, they're in wheelchairs. It starts around 35 to 40. She knew she had it, and she was starting to lose her balance, and fear was setting in that, oh my God, a beautiful young woman, 35 years old, is thinking about being in a wheelchair. And of course, her husband also freaking out, seeing her losing balance and thinking, oh my God, this is going to happen. And so she came to me and I said, I can't change the mutation. I said, but we can change your environmental factors epigenetically so it's much more supportive. And she was in a lot of stress from her work, from relationships and communication with her husband. And I said, I believe that we can bring back these symptoms that are coming on you now if we can get rid of the stressors. And stress is always, okay, and when I say stress, it's distress, when it's too much, okay? When there's too much stress and overwhelming, it will then trigger these things. And that's 3 years ago. I work with her regularly every 6 months, and none of her symptoms have returned. Now, if she can maintain that, that will be great. But she's now just recently had a new baby, and she had someone carry the baby for her because she didn't want to transfer the mutant gene. But now she's a mother with a little baby for the first time. And that's a very intense stressor, as any of us know. So far so good. But again, I regularly do sessions with her and her husband because they've never been parents before. And all of a sudden, all that shit's coming up for them with their parents, of their being raised, especially him, the father. So it's this constant process of living in peace, maintaining peaceful relationships, and doing what's right for the body and mind for you. See, that's another part of the brilliance of Ayurveda. It tells us we have different body types, different doshas. Okay? That we don't want to be the normal and be just like, we're not like that. So find that for yourself, and through meditation and through yoga, to all these things, you can reach that level and be the master of your field and be the master of what's going on. Other questions?
I just have a comment. I just find from yoga, you learn to be grateful, and that's like a very strong thing to start the day with. Just to run through like all the things you're grateful for, because there's a lot if you actually start going through it, and that just resets the whole way you start the day.
Right. It is absolutely wonderful. In fact, one of the things I suggest to all my clients is the moment you wake up, go to a window or look out a window and say to yourself, I'm alive, therefore I'm blessed. And that is the greatest gratitude of life. I have life. And whether your gratitude list is beautiful, wonderful things to do, to practice. However, just saying it is not enough. You can't just read, yeah, blah, blah, I'm grateful. It has to have, remember, embodiment, and it has to have tone. So, be sincere in your gratitude. Not just, okay, I've got to go down my list and read this, and okay, and gee, it's not. You see, you've got to embody it. Put yourself into it. And if you feel inside, yeah, but what about this? And what about that, right? Well, then you have to work on those things with someone to help you turn it to gratitude. That's therapeutic alchemy, where we learn to take the lead and turn it into gold. That changes the vibrational field. It removes these tags and it opens up ourself to the space of infinity. Yes?
I'm trying to relate this to Buddhist teaching. Maybe you could help.
Say that again?
Buddhist teaching.
Buddhist teaching.
We are taught to accept things like it comes, positive, negative, and both, just like how it is.
The Buddhist, the Noble Truths, and most of the Buddhist ways are so helpful. They give you wonderful directions and guidance for monitoring and managing your life, and to wonderful ideals to reach for. So whatever your spiritual path is, and whether it's Buddhism or Christianity or Hinduism, it makes no difference. Okay, many of their precepts are absolutely wonderful, but you have to be careful because some of them aren't. And you know, some of the Bible is cloaked in horrible, condemnation and punishment, and you know, things of hell and damnation, and those that's all made up of a part of the mind that is literally against your well-being. And we do have this thing called an ego mind that's separate, that really, it'd rather be right than happy, to say it simply. And the ego mind will sabotage you, okay? And that's why if you're following some of these wonderful principles, it can help you quite a bit. But again, they can't be parroted. They have to be embodied. They have to be felt, okay? With a deep burning desire. You know, when people come to me, and I've helped people through so many different things, but I always start with the first thing. I said, tell me, what is it that you want? And they said, well, I really like to do this. I go, just like to do this? I said, I can't help you unless you have a burning desire to do this, a full commitment to do this. You come here, okay, and people, what, they're going to do a 5-day Ayurvedic retreat and think, oh, wow, I just did it and I'm all great now. No. Unless you're then taking everything and you've done everything to take all of that home with you, the chances are you're going to need 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks to just get your body resonating in the new field, because we've got to change new resonance. We can see the beautiful thing about our brains, okay, is that it has something called neurogenesis. We can create new aspects of our brain. And remember, I'm just curious, let me just do it. Take your finger on one hand and point to your brain. Point to your brain. Up there? Your brain's up there? Okay, here. Okay. So, let me tell you that you are all partially correct. 1/3 correct. But you don't have one brain. You have 3 brains. Here, here, and here. You have a cerebral brain. Your heart is also a brain. Same thing with neurons, neural connections. And then your gut, you have the enteric brain. And these 3 brains are all connected through the vagus nerve. So there's like this intranet inside of you, and if what you really feel you need in your life to survive, and what you really love in your life, and what you're thinking, if you're thinking one thing, feeling something else, going this way, now where's the stress coming? Inside of you. One of the first things we work to do is to create alignment between the head, the heart, and the gut. Well, I love making all the money that I make at my job, but damn, I just really hate what I'm doing, and it so stresses me out, and the people doing it there. But gee, I'm hoping in the future I'll then be able to have enough money to do what I want. So you see, I'm split. If you don't have congruency within yourself, then you're stressing yourself out. But of course, the ego is going to find someone to blame. And it won't be you. Align within yourself. Now, FYI, I have a number of books that are available at briansheen.com. I have many courses. I don't know, maybe about 20 courses now on Udemy, which is a platform for courses, little video courses of 3 to 4 hours. I'm going to be here for probably in this area for the next few weeks at least. So if anybody wants to see me or get involved, we can work something out, and you can talk to reception there, and we'll organize something, or talk to me. And if you need to get hold of me, there's my email address. And on my website, I have many different books. On this, there's a 12-week training program with every step involved to accomplish, to change your fields at every different level, with everything around you. And if you go through it, I've seen remarkable things. In fact, I've had a 97% success rate of people going through that program, getting off their antidepressants and ADD medications and anxiety medications, just doing the program, because it completely shifts everything inside.
Have you had any practice with people with, what's it called when you shake?
Parkinson's?
Parkinson's.
I haven't, no. It just hasn't come to me. But I've had people with other neurological diseases, and I've seen remarkable changes, because it's just changing the stresses in their life. You know, you let a person be in a supportive, loving environment, that's about the best medicine you can give them. You know, and going into nature, you know, I think one of the worst places to ever go if you're sick is to a hospital. It's a hospital, okay? It's not about nurturing you, and at least the ones in the States, they're always freezing cold, and they're always loud, and alarms going off. You're not in an environment that says, hey, guess what? You know, you're getting healthier. You know, and what they used to do, you see, way back when, is they used to take you outside into the garden and make sure you got some sunlight every day, make sure you were surrounded by flowers and by nature, had people come to you. You know, it was very supportive. And we're so afraid of the germs. It's not the germs. It's the mental, emotional state. You maintain that highest vibration. That's the best thing that you can do for yourself and for everyone around you.
Can I buy a book here?
No, you can buy it online, Amazon, Kindle. You can download them all on Kindle. No, I don't carry them. They're so heavy to carry. But the Epigenetics Cure, or Accessing Your Inner Environment, Accessing Your Inner Pharmacy. Yeah, beautiful books. They're in English and in Spanish. And also they're on audio.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for listening. I have no idea what time I did, and if I went too long, I usually do. So, thank you very much. And thank you so much. Thank you.